Yesterday, prisoners are set to get the right to vote, at least some of them will, as the government is poised to throw in the towel in a long-running legal tussle with the European Court of Human Rights. As we reported, the coalition is likely to confirm a change in the law to remove the blanket voting ban on British prisoners. The move comes after government lawyers advised that the failure to comply with the 2004 European Court ruling could cost the taxpayer hundreds of millions of pounds in compensation. You may have heard the Prime Minister say at PMQs how having to do this made him physically sick. Well, the man who originally took the government to court is former prisoner John Hirst. He was convicted of manslaughter in 1980. He joins us now from Hull. Mr. Hirst, is it your position that no matter how horrific the crime, whether you're a serial killer or a paedophile, that all prisoners should get the vote?
Good afternoon, Andrew. Yes, that is correct. It's quite clear from my judgment that it applies to everybody, because you can't start saying certain people do have human rights and other people don't have human rights.
Well, the question is whether you have the right to vote. I mean, could you really explain to our viewers why someone like you, who bludgeoned a woman to death with an axe, having done that, you went into the kitchen to make coffee and drank it, waiting for her to die? Could you explain why, having done that, you should have the vote?
Thank you for that graphic account, Andrew.
Comes from your own court case.
Yes, quite right, for which I served my sentence, and that was 30 years ago. What you seem to be mistaken, and I'm quite surprised as someone who's supposed to have his finger on the political pulse, is that we're talking about the government that's in the dock here, not me.
Yes,
so,
but except that you got 15 years for this because you...
And I served 25, so why haven't they explained that?
And you served 25 because in prison you committed a number of violent offences there too.
I served the extra 10 years because I challenged them legally. So get your facts right.
Well, that is what I've got here from the Reading Crown Court. You served 25 years in prison as a violent man. Now, surely it's reasonable that someone who took away the civil rights of Bronya Burton with an axe should lose their civil rights while serving a sentence in prison.
We're not talking about civil rights here. You keep missing the point. It's human rights. Everybody, it doesn't matter who they are. What's the difference between human rights and civil rights? Well, human rights we got after the Nazi regime put 6 million Jews, gypsies and homosexuals through the gas chambers. And they said never again.
What happened to Bronya Burton's human rights?
So they decided.
What happened to Mrs. Burton's human rights, Mr. Hirst?
Go on, you tell me. You're asking the question. You think you're smart. Now, can we get back onto the subject? We're talking about prisoners' human rights that was being abused by the state. And as a result of that now, the taxpayers are going to have to pay 135 million damages to them. Now, you should be asking the government why they cocked up for 5 years.
Instead, I'm asking you, what is wrong with the principle that if you're serving time for an offence, a horrific offence like the one you committed, that your rights as a citizen, your human rights and civil rights, are temporarily suspended? You're not out of prison, you can vote.
Hackers like? You come out with all this nonsense.
What's the answer to my question?
You do not suspend human rights. You have no authority to suspend them.
That's a suspension of human rights.
You don't suspend them, you get them. You don't take those away just because you're in jail.
So even if you show no remorse, as you have not shown for your crime, you still think...
Well, it's funny, there's 2 Court of Appeal decisions which say I have. So again, you're getting your facts wrong.
You told The Guardian that you didn't in 2006. So you still think that even no matter how horrific the offence, and no matter that you show no remorse for it at all, indeed at one stage you said, I don't give 2 Fs for what you had done, you still think you should have the vote while you're in prison?
I've heard about this ginger rat. Is that the dead thing on your head?
Are you just going to be offensive now, Mr. Hirst, or are you going to answer the question?
Come on. I don't have to answer your silly thing. I'm not on trial. It's the government on trial. Turn it around. It's the government on trial. For breaching 75,000 prisoners' human rights.
Do you accept that law-abiding citizens will find the idea that convicted killers, such as yourself, being able to vote...
Actually, there was a law-abiding citizen inside. And this is why they gave me 10 years extra, because I was being a law-abiding prisoner in custody. And that isn't the reason they should be giving someone 10 years extra.
Do
That is
you-
what's wrong with this country, isn't it?
Do you think that any political party will now go along with your idea of a total blanket support?
Yeah. They've got
for
no
votes?
option, have they?
Well,
I
they
mean,
do. They can still have
no,
the
they didn't,
they still have
because
the
they
right
took
to
the state
determine what
hostage.
prisoners will have the vote or not.
You're missing the point that Parliament, the judiciary and the executive have been taken hostage or prisoners by the prisoners.
All right. Mr. Hurst, thanks for coming in.
Thank
We're
you
going to
very
lose
much.
the line now, but thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Now, just time before you go to put you out of your misery.